Hello everyone, welcome to your Tuesday maths lesson. Today we're going to be continuing with decimals, where yesterday we looked at tenths. Today we're going to be looking at hundredths. Okay, so before we move on to today's learning about hundredths, here are the answers to Monday's learning about tenths. So, over the next 3 slides, there will be the answers to questions 1 to 7. So pause the video here, have a look at these answers, and then I will move through the slides. If you have got anything wrong, or if you've struggled, if you got anything wrong and you can see your obvious mistake, that's fine. If you got something wrong and you just can't see where you went wrong, please can you message me and let me know so that I can help you on your own. So here is questions 1, 2, and 3. Here are questions 4, 5, and 6. And finally, here is question 7. So do let me know if any part of this worksheet, yesterday's worksheet, you struggled with. Okay, so to recap yesterday's lessons about tenths, we learnt that when you divide 1 into 10 equal parts, so when you divide 1 into 10 equal parts, you get tenths. And we know that tenths can be written like this, 1/10, or they can be a fraction, 1/10, or it can be a decimal number, which would be 0.1. This is 1/10. So 1/10, the fraction, is 0.1 when it is written as a decimal. So we know that when we divide 1 into 10 equal parts, we get 1/10. So let's have a look at this little in focus task. So this little girl is saying that this stands for 1. So this bar model here, we know stands for 1. And what we were discussing on the previous slide is that we know when we divide the number 1 into 10 equal parts, we get tenths. So this bar model is representing tenths, which we know can be shown as a fraction, 1 over the denominator 10, or as a decimal, 0.1. So what do these each shaded parts stand for? So the pink lines are showing you the tenths because it is number 1 divided into 10 equal parts. What is this little shaded part standing for? So it's your 1/10 divided into 10 equal parts. Now what does that stand for? So, as we were discussing in the previous slide, here we have a bar model representing the number 1. And when we divide 1 into 100 equal parts, each part is 1/100th. So as we were discussing yesterday, the pink lines are sectioning off the tenths. So that's dividing 1 into 10 equal parts to give you a tenth. But here, this tiny little shaded green part is 1/100th. So when we divide 1 into 100 equal parts, each part is 1/100th. So 1/100th as a fraction is like this. We have 1 as the numerator, 100 as the denominator, and this is 0.01 or 0.01 when written as a decimal. And as this girl is quite rightly saying, we read 0.01 as 1/100th. Okay, so now that we know that this bar model is showing the number 1, if it was fully shaded in, it was 1. We know the pinks are showing tenths. And we now know that 1 divided into 100 equal parts would give us hundredths. And we know that these pink markers are showing the number 1 divided into 10 equal parts, which is tenths. So the question is, what number do the shaded parts represent? So basically, we need to count these green shaded in bits. So we're going to count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we know that the small lines, the blue lines, are showing hundredths. So we know that we have 8 hundredths shaded. And we know that 8 hundredths as a fraction is 8 over 100. And it is written sometimes as 8 hundredths. Now, how would we represent, or how would we write 8 hundredths as a decimal number? Now, we wouldn't do 0.8 because 0.8 would show 8 tenths. So when we are doing 8 hundredths, it would show as a decimal as 0.08. So this number reads as 8 hundredths. So let's have a look at part B. So this time we have 1, 2, 3, 3 parts shaded, and we know those parts are hundredths. So we have 3 hundredths shaded. So as a fraction, we have 3 over 100, 3 hundredths. And then it can also be written like this, 3 hundredths. And then as a decimal, it would be 0.03. Okay, so now it's your turn to just complete this little quick question, which says, write the decimal shown by the shaded part. So all you need to do is what I did on the previous slide. So pause the video here, and you don't need to write it down. You could write it down if you want, or you could just say it out loud to your computer. So yeah, write or say the decimal shown by the shaded part. Pause the video here. Okay, very good. I'm hoping you noticed that there were 9 shaded parts, and those 9 shaded parts represented 9 hundredths, which you can see written as 9 hundredths, or as a fraction, 9 over 100. And if you write it as a decimal, it would not be 0.9, because that would be 9 tenths. It would be 0.09, because we are looking at hundredths. Okay, let's have a look at this question. It says the shaded part stands for blank. So the shaded part, so the green shaded area, it has filled in, you can see, if you count them, there are 10 hundredths shaded in. Now the 10 hundredths also go up to our pink line, which we know is a tenth. So this boy is saying, I think the shaded part is showing 10 hundredths. And this girl is saying, I think it is showing 1/10. Now, they are both correct. It is 0.1, because if you look at the boy's answer, he's also written 0.1, just added the 0 at the end. So he's written 0.10, but he needn't have put that 0 at the end. It is showing 0.1, which we know is a tenth. So what we've learnt here is that 10 hundredths is the same as 1/10. Okay, so let's have a look at this on a place value chart. So you can see here that in our hundredths column, we have 10 hundredths. Now, the thing about place value that we know in our number system is that 10 is like a magic number. So when you have 10 ones, then you can make a 10. When you have 10 tens, we know that that would then make 100. And the same happens here. So when you have 10 hundredths, you can exchange them for 1/10, which you can see on this place value chart. So 10 hundredths is the same, or can be exchanged for 1/10. Okay, let's have a go at this question. So it says, write the decimal shown by the shaded part. So looking at this bar model, we know the whole thing represents 1, and it has been split into hundredths. Now, we can see that there are 2/10 shaded in. We know 1/10 is the same as 10 hundredths. So 2/10 is the same as 20 hundredths. and then we have those remaining 3 little hundredths. So, sorry, shaded in. So we have 23 hundredths shaded in, which if we look on a place value grid, we can see that we have 2 tenths shaded in, and then also those remaining 3 hundredths shaded in. So to write this, the shaded part as a decimal, it would not be 0.023, it would be 0.23, because as we learnt in the previous slide, we can exchange those 10 hundredths for 1/10, and here we have 20 hundredths shaded, or 23 hundredths shaded in, so we can exchange them for 2 tenths and the 3 hundredths. So the decimal for this image is 0.23. Okay, now it is your turn. Your question says, write the decimal shown by the shaded part. Right, so pause the video here and write down or just say at your screen the decimal number shown by this image. Okay, so we can see here that we have 6 tenths shaded in. And if we're going to think about hundredths as well, we know that 6 tenths is the same as 60 hundredths. So we have 60 hundredths, which is the same as 6 tenths. So 6 tenths shaded in. So if we look at that on a place value grid, we're not going to put the number 60 in the hundredths column. We're going to exchange all of those hundredths for 6 tenths. So this image as a decimal number is 0.6. Okay, Year 5 is over to you now. You have a worksheet to do with tenths and hundredths as decimals. So good luck with your worksheet. If you get stuck at any point, remember to come back to this video and find the bit that is relevant to your question and just maybe listen to it again. If you are really stuck, can't get your head around it at all, please message me or Mrs. Moore on Dojo and we'll talk you through it all again.